Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as always, is your other co-host, John. John, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing okay. Gotta be honest, I'm still a little feeling like hungover from not actually, but mentally hungover
Yes,
from Saturday. Still processing a lot of stuff, but we're
I'm
getting
with you.
through it. Got to try to move on, and look forward to next week. I was on Twitter and this morning, and there was someone who wrote an article about another team. I'm not going to name who they are.
Okay,
Not trying to get people mad at us, but
sure.
it's just hilarious to me that the way you can spin stuff about how this particular loss was a necessary thing to improve the program moving forward, and
A
I'm not
necessary
saying
loss, huh?
yeah, and I'm not saying
Okay.
this is a maybe, of course it can be a learning experience, duh.
Yeah,
It's
anything
just
can be.
it's just funny that there's certain programs that have these kind of hype men that will spin anything into oh no, it's okay, it's fine, that was necessary, we had to go through that to get to where we're going. And I'm like, well, how long are we going to keep doing this,
Kind of like
so
LeBron.
yeah.
Like how people are always spinning every LeBron story and being
Oh
like,
yeah.
don't you dare say anything about Saint LeBron. And I have nothing personally against LeBron James, so let
Yeah.
me put that out there. But the way people talk about him, it's
Yeah.
like, how dare you say something about LeBron? And
Yeah.
I feel like with some other programs, sometimes you get that from the media, like who are you
Yeah.
to talk ill of this program?
It's crazy. And so that being said, that loss to Iowa was absolutely necessary, and we are going to learn from this. And you know what? I think this is going to drive us forward. We are going to win the jug. We're going to win every game from here on out and go 10-2, and we'll be in the college football playoff. That's what I'm saying. This is how we're going to go forward now. So I'm going to be that guy for the Gophers.
Yeah, I
I'm
like
going to
it.
just delusional take after delusional take. That's what I'm here for. All right. Okay. Jug is ours. I don't even know why Michigan is even going to show up in Ann Arbor. They might as well not. Just give it to us now.
You can be the Big Ten spiritual heir to Paul Feinbaum. Hey, we need one. The Big Ten needs a Paul Feinbaum. Why not you?
That's right. I'll do it. I'm happy to be that shill. Sign me up.
For sure. With the paychecks he's signed. Yeah. Paul sleeps just fine at night, knowing
That's
what he
right.
does. Just fine on a pile of money.
How are you? How's things with you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah. We've gotten past, this is the end of Wednesday, so we've gotten over halfway through the week, which I feel good about. And yeah, Saturday is still sticking with me in some ways. It was a particularly brutal. I think rivalries are like that, and you think about them all year,
Sure. Yep.
And now the best I can hope for is that we beat them in basketball, and we won't. And then we come back next year. But you know what? At the same time, there's 8 games left.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to be excited about that, right?
That's right.
We still have a ton of football to be played. And I think, there's still a lot out there for not just the Gophers, but for everybody in college football. And I'm really excited to see the way things shape up here going forward.
Well, I'll tell you this. If Iowa actually added a D1 hockey program,
yeah,
Gophers would own them. That's
sure.
what I'll say that. So,
But they won't.
No, they should though. And I know there's actually there is a rather large push, more than you think, in Iowa for that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I think that it is more popular than what you think, because the Iowa Wild, the Minnesota Wild affiliate, it does incredibly well.
Huh. I had no idea.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Again, they were in talks. The Big Ten needs to expand to 10 teams in hockey, but this is not a hockey podcast. But if they did, Gophers would absolutely own you, Iowa. So
yeah.
First off, just make it happen, but then so we can own you for real. Right.
This was the hockey podcast. It'd be mostly you talking.
That's right.
And a lot of me nodding. Like, yep, absolutely. Pride on ice. All right. Should we get into previewing these games, which I'm excited. It's a big week 5.
It is, man. And it's finally conference play, dude. which is
finally
amazing.
fully conference play.
Yes.
None of these rinky-dink FCS games. No more of that nonsense. Like, let's get real. Let's put our chips in. Let's see what's up. It's conference play.
That's right. That's right. And before we get into that, I just want to remind everybody that if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You want to find us on Twitter, you can find it. It's at We Live for B1G Sat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26, and you can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can also email us, We Live for Saturday, B1G at gmail.com.
All right, let's get right into these games. The first one up is our Friday night game of the week. We kind of have, that's kind of the new thing, John, is having a game on Friday night. I'm going to be honest, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
You get teams where you might be watching them on, Saturday. My setup anyway at home is I've got a couple TVs up so I can watch 2 games at once. But it's like if a team's on your second TV, you're watching the game, but you're not like locked in on it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're trying to watch multiple games.
Yeah.
So when it's on Friday night, it's just that, it's the main, like, I think there's another Friday night FBS game too, but like if it's a Big Ten game, that's going to be on my main TV, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm excited to look up close at, we've got the 3-1 Washington Huskies going to Piscataway to visit the 3-1 Rutgers Scarlet Knights. So it's that's on Friday, September 27th at 7 p.m. on Fox, and the line is Rutgers by 2.5. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think this is going to be a fun matchup, dude. First off, I think this is going to be a really good test for Rutgers finally. Other than, I shouldn't say that. I didn't think Virginia Tech was going to be a test for them, but then Rutgers defense just collapsed in the second half and allowed Virginia Tech to score 16 points in the fourth
they took
quarter.
A half off. That was popular last week.
Really was. Yeah. Well, they're not going to be able to this week. Rutgers is not going to be able to. Washington is not going to be able to take a half off either. But they didn't. Obviously, they handled the Wildcats easily last week. So, but this is going to be a battle between 2 amazing running backs. You're going to see Kyle Monangai with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights and Jonah Coleman with the Washington Huskies. And that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Neither running back last week was particularly spectacular, but they weren't bad. Jonah Coleman had 15 carries for 67 yards with a 4.5 yard average. And Kyle Monangai had 26 carries for 84 yards with 3.2 yard average. Now, like, they were okay. They were fine. Not fantastic, but okay, serviceable, and were able to open up the pass for both of their quarterbacks. But when it comes to these 2 teams, I think what it's going to come down to is who has the better quarterback play. And right now, I know Ethan Kaliak-Manis has shown some improvement, but he hasn't played anyone really tough yet, any tough defenses, let's put it that way. And I don't think Washington's defense is particularly spectacular, but it's going to be more talent than I think they've faced thus far. I think, so it's going to be down to the quarterback. And right now, Will Rogers is the clear favorite, in my opinion. And I think Washington is just going to, and also with the receivers. I mean, with Giles Jackson, it's tough. And Boston, or not Giles Jackson. Giles Jackson, Boston, Jeremiah Hunter, and you can also toss the ball over to Jonah Coleman as well, and he's able to take that out of the backfield and make some plays. So it's Washington has more offensive weapons, in my opinion. But we also got to talk about the line of scrimmage. And I think right now, although Washington has looked more improved than what I previously expected, I think Rutgers just has a little bit of an edge there as well on both sides of the ball. So it's going to be, in a way, this is a coin flip game for me. I think they're both pretty evenly matched. They both have their strengths in other areas that one doesn't. But I think it's going to be a close game. I think this is a great matchup. Like I said, I'm just seeing the possibility of Washington being able to score more points faster with some bigger play abilities. Now, if Rutgers, and the reason I'm having some questions about Rutgers is because their defensive collapse last week.
Yep.
That's
fair.
That gives me pause. So I know they're capable of shutting down, quarterbacks like Will Rogers, but if they take a half off, man, or a quarter off, or even a series off, that could be it. Because Will Rogers is fully capable of making you pay for that in one fell swoop. So
yeah, he'll pick you apart for sure.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a really good game. Another really good Friday night game, by the way. Like, I love this. I'm with you. But I think it's going to be really close. For me, I wouldn't have picked this at the beginning of the season. But after what I saw from Washington last week, and I know Northwestern is not a great opponent, but I saw that offense clicking and I saw what it can do. And I'm going to actually pick Washington to beat Rutgers. I know.
Interesting. Your Rutgers.
I know.
Your boys.
Dude, after seeing a team that, in my opinion, was so inferior, Virginia Tech last week, letting them back into the game like that on the defensive side of the ball, with which is supposed to be their strength at Rutgers. That was just, I don't know. I feel like I can't trust them right now. And Washington looked efficient and clean last week, and I think they're ready for it. And I have Washington winning 24 to Rutgers 23.
Wow. So these are currently, I think what's interesting to me is these are currently two top 30 defenses in scoring D. And Washington's has been even more efficient than Rutgers has to date. So which one? But they also haven't played very good competition, right?
That's true.
So like, which one is for real?
Yep.
And are they both for real? Or is one of them more of a mirage than the other? And like, there's no mystery to what Rutgers wants to do in this game. They want to beat you in a submission with the running game and get you on play action passes on RPOs. That's the Kirk Shiraka offense. Kirk does a good job running the ball all over you and then eventually scheming wide receivers open off of that run game. So far, Ethan has played better than anticipated, right? Mm-hmm. Completing almost 63% of his passes, 9 yards per attempt, 6 TDs and a pick. Those are pretty strong numbers, albeit against weak competition. He has taken a few sacks, though, so you want to watch for that. But so far, he's done what he's been asked to do. But Will Rogers, man, completing 76% of his passes for over 1,000 yards, 9.4 yards per attempt, 8 TDs, 0 picks. That's really good work. And you can see how experienced he is back there for them. Jonah Coleman has been solid at RB, obviously. And you talked about Giles Jackson and Denzel Boston. By the way, great football names.
Amazing.
Giles Jackson and Denzel Boston. That's straight out of Central Casting. Like, that's from a football movie. Like, I love that. That's fantastic. No notes. I think they're going to need both of them to have big games because I don't think Jonah Coleman's going to be able to run the ball. I just don't think it's going to work that well against this Scarlet Knights defense. So, while both have played bad competition, Washington is 85th in scoring and Rutgers is 21st. So Rutgers has scored more against the bad defenses than Washington has. I think this is a really close game. I think it comes down deep in the fourth quarter, but I just think that ultimately Rutgers is a little better on the line of scrimmage. I think they Big Ten them just a little bit in the second half, and we see them wear down. And I'm going to predict that this Shianu and Joe Harris-Simiak defense forces a turnover at some point, at a key point in the game, like in the third quarter, fourth quarter, when they need it. I think Rutgers is going to get a turnover. I think it's going to lead to a field goal. I think that's going to be the game. So I've got the Rutgers Scarlet Knights 24, the Washington Huskies 21.
Wow.
I have more faith in Rutgers than you do. I can't believe it.
Dude, I know. Well, and here's the thing. Like, I do think it's a coin flip game, and it could go either way, and I wouldn't be surprised. And you could very well be right. I just feel like Will Rogers and his receiving core are like just clicking right now.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree.
We'll
I think they're
see.
good.
It's going to come down to big plays, I think, really what it's going to be. Like you said, either a turnover or, or Will Rogers is going to be able to hit somebody deep, and that'll take it away. But we'll see.
I'll tell you what, if Washington wins this game, I will have to look at them a little differently than I did before.
Yeah, same.
What's our buddy in the chat? At 89 Windy City, is it something like that?
Yeah.
We'll have to tell him that we'll eat our crow if Washington can beat Rutgers. That'll be enough for me to say, hey man, we were a little, maybe we jumped the gun a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe that offensive line isn't as bad as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, should we move on to the next game?
Yes.
Next up, we have Fox's big noon game, which means it's an 11 a.m. kick in God's time, Central Time, as God intended. All right. We've got the 2-2 Minnesota Golden Gophers going to Ann Arbor, take on the 3-1 number 12 Michigan Wolverines. The line is, and all the rest of these games will also be on this Saturday, September 28th. The line is Michigan by 9.5. So Michigan's coming off a thrilling last-second win over USC, which Kalel Mullings turned water into wine on a 63-yard run that set up the game-winning touchdown. Wolverines were impressive defensively against USC, holding that vaunted Trojans offensive attack to just 24 points. That's really good. Mm-hmm. Their D-line, which didn't play great the first few games, came out with their hair on fire and made life miserable for Miller Moss all day, I thought. The Wolverines will want to do the same to Max Brosmer on Saturday. Michigan's offense was really uneven against USC. The first game with Orji full-time at QB, Colston Loveland was having a nice year at tight end, a really nice year before getting banged up, and he was their kind of go-to guy, and none of the wide receivers on the Wolverines roster has really gotten that much done this year. So that probably needs to change at some point if Michigan is going to contend for the Big Ten championship and the college football playoff like they want to. But Michigan, for its sake, with Orji at the helm, seems content to keep the ball on the ground. The Michigan QB completed just 7 of 12 passes for 32 yards against USC in a win. That is not a power conference level passing attack. That's like a service academy. We're running the ball 75% of the time passing attack. Michigan is basically the most talented service academy that's ever existed. is what we have here. If they're going to know, but for real, if they're going to throw the ball 12 times like it's the 1960s.
Yeah.
Dude, we talk about PJ running the ball a lot. That is more than PJ ever done. That's running the ball a lot.
Yep.
A lot. So that's really interesting to me. Does this Michigan staff eventually let Orji throw the ball anymore? Like against Minnesota, will he throw the ball a little more than they did against USC? They almost have to, but maybe they won't. I don't know, man. And I'm fascinated to find out like what that Michigan offensive attack, whether it's just all the option run game or if they have more, times they try to go downfield. I would say like Michigan, Minnesota's is at a crossroads after dropping a really tough game to Iowa in which they dominated the first half and then got dominated in the second half. Mm-hmm. So both teams are looking for more consistency. For Minnesota, QB Max Brosmer has been solid, if unspectacular, throwing for 836 yards so far on 66% completion, 7.3 yards per attempt, 5 TDs, but 3 picks. He's also taken 8 sacks, which is too many, and I blame his offensive line for that more than him. Except for the one time he tried to outrun the defensive end against North Carolina. That was just a welcome to the power conference level moment. Anyway, Daniel Jackson playing really well at wide receiver. Well, Elijah Spencer and Le'Meke Brockington have also contributed this season. And RB Darius Taylor obviously is a consistent target as well. So Darius only got 12 touches last game, which I just don't think is nearly enough for your best player. And I think PJ knows that. And I would be shocked if Darius doesn't get 20, 25 plus touches in this game. Because you have to utilize your best guys because Michigan has a bunch of guys who are as good as your best guys.
Yep.
And that brings us to the problem Minnesota's had. The O-line just hasn't been good enough, John. Despite returning several starters, including 3 seniors, that is a problem, as the O-line has regressed from last year despite losing just 1 player from last year's offensive line. So it's a mystery. And I understand a true sophomore is a young guy to have at center, but like, dude, it's got to be better than it's looked so far. You know, he was a really highly rated recruit. He got in early. He got to play a bunch as a freshman on a good line. Now he's in a spot where he needs to be the guy. Like, we need him to step up and be the guy a little more. So, and then the D-line played really well in the first half, and I thought didn't play very well in the second half against Iowa either. The whole D just kind of quit competing at the level they had in the first half. And that terrifies me with Michigan next up on the schedule, actually. Because Minnesota will need to play its best game of the year just to compete with the Wolverines, let alone win the game outright. I mean, this is the kind of game, John, I think, where you put 9, even 10 guys in the box and you just dare Michigan to throw. You just do it. They don't want to throw the ball with Alex Orji. You crowd the line. You attack your gaps. You stifle the cutbacks. Make sure not to give up those long bomb runs Michigan got last Saturday. The 60, 50, 40-yard runs they were getting. But you might give up 1 or 2. But like, that's got to be it. And you shut everything else down and you make it really, really hard. And you put them in 3rd and long and you make Alex Orji prove he can throw it and beat you. Or you make them prove that they can run the ball on 3rd and long and have it work out, which they did against USC, to be fair. They did run the ball on 3rd and long and it went just fine for them. So, I mean, man, it's just, this isn't Devin Eastern, Danny Strigow, Ja Joyner, Anthony Smith, Jalen Logan Redding. Like, this is a game where those guys need to show up, be ready to go to war in the trenches, because Michigan wants to grind you into powder. And it's going to be, it's going to be a fight on Saturday, like a legit fight up front. And Minnesota's got to be ready to fight, not for a half, for 4 quarters. So I don't know. How are you seeing this game shaping up, John? What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I already told you that, I don't know why Michigan even wants to play this game. I think it's just outright going to be Minnesota, 70-0. I think we got this in the bag. So that's just the way it is. Yeah. I think we learned, it was a necessary loss from Iowa. No, I'm just kidding. No, the way I see this going, look, man, I gotta see something major from this coaching staff, and the players, of course, as well. But I gotta see our players motivated and just throwing caution to the wind on both sides of the ball, just going for it, man. Even if you lose, like, just to see that level of effort. And you are doling out your biggest and best freaking punches every chance you get. And if we don't see that, if we see what we've seen before sometimes from PJ, where we're just trying to get out healthy, and not that I don't want to.
This is not like a normal game like that. This is not a blowout game. This is not even a 10-point spread. Not even a 10-point spread. So like, this is a game you should theoretically have a puncher's chance in.
And it's the same thing like when we've talked about Iowa in the past. Like, the reason Jeff Brom was able to beat Iowa was because he just went out. He went at them instead of was afraid of their defense.
He attacked them.
And that's what we're going to have to do here. You can't just be, and yes, Michigan's defense has earned that right, just like Iowa's defense has earned the right for people to be afraid of them. Of course.
Yes.
A lot of people should be, but that you can't, you have to go at them. You have to attack every possible way you can, and leave nothing on that field. And at least leave with your dignity. Like, it cannot be a blowout. I'm not saying it won't be, but with I don't want to see it be lack of effort. Let's put it that way. So that being said, right now, as much as it pains me, and I don't want this to be the outcome, but I lost a lot of faith in our coaching. I mean, I see Michigan running away with this, and I hate it. And literally running. I see Michigan winning 28 to Minnesota's 10.
Okay. I mean, this is the battle, of course. We didn't even mention this is the battle for the Little Brown Jug.
Yep.
The original traveling trophy in
Yep.
all of college football, created back when Minnesota, Michigan was a heated rivalry in the early part of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic game, fantastic tradition around this game. The jug is a special trophy. I mean, it really started that
Yeah.
whole movement. And
Yep.
Michigan and Minnesota deserve credit for starting something that caught on with the rest of college football.
Absolutely.
So I will always say that, and these two schools are always bound together by that, and I have that respect for Michigan.
Yep.
I think Minnesota comes out intense in this game. I think the Gophers are ready. I think they compete really hard. I think they get Daniel Jackson involved. I think they find creative ways to get Darius Taylor the ball in the passing game specifically. But also, I think they try to run the ball a little more because they got a little too pass heavy. It made it a little too easy for Iowa to tee off on that pass rush. And I think that goes well for a while. For 2, maybe 3 quarters. But eventually, I just think Michigan is so tough up front. The way they will play FU Big Ten football. Yeah. And I think eventually Minnesota wears down against it. So I've got the Michigan Wolverines 34, the Minnesota Golden Gophers 20.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely. And that's, if that's the way it goes, which is how I'm actually hoping. I mean, obviously I would hope for a win. That'd be the best. But
yeah, I was going to say, I'm hoping for a win. I'll be honest. I'm not predicting a win, but I am hoping for a win. Like, but very much so. I will be watching this game.
Yeah. But if it's a loss, I hope that it is with, we're able to actually get some points on the board, and it looks like we tried, and not just gave up like we've seen against superior opponents before. I want to see this be a fight until the end, even if it is.
I don't think Michigan is that level of. Yeah, I don't think that Michigan is that level of opponent that they've been in the past. Mm-hmm. I just don't think they're the same team that won the national title and won those 3 Big Ten titles. They're still very good. They're still very talented. But I don't think it is that team. And I think Minnesota has a real chance in this game. And I just need to see the coaching staff take advantage of it before I can believe that they're gonna.
Well, I agree with you. I'm just afraid that the coaching staff isn't going to look at it that way. And, or, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to think right now as far as our coaching staff. And so I guess that's where I'm just a little cautious, and I hope to God I will be 100% surprised and will be proven wrong in every possible way. That is my hope. But yeah,
I'm saying, yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. And I'm saying the Gophers play well in the first half. And if I'm wrong about that, I will come back on this podcast and say I was wrong about it. But I think the Gophers are going to come out with their hair on fire. I think they're going to have a good game plan. I think they're going to be clogging gaps. I think they're going to be getting tackles for loss. And I think it's going to be real quiet in the big house for a while.
Okay.
Whether or not the Gophers can keep that up for 4 quarters, that's the question.
Sure. I hope so, man. That's what I'm hoping for too.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, next up, we have the Maryland Terrapins at 3-1 visiting the 4-0 Indiana Hoosiers. So this is an 11 a.m. game on the Big Ten Network. The line is Indiana by 7. It's been a September to remember so far in Bloomington, John.
Yeah.
Curt Cignetti is the first Hoosier coach in history to start his career 4-0. Indiana isn't just defeating teams, they're beating them into submission. And Hoosier fans have more hope now than at any other point other than the COVID year in recent memory. Probably since, Antoine Randall L?
Yeah.
Probably more hope than any time since then. Signetti has the chance to get within 1 win of bowl eligibility before he's taken his first loss. That's heady stuff. Indiana's currently 5th in the country in scoring offense. They have played bad teams, but they have bludgeoned every team they've played.
Mm-hmm.
And QB Curtis Rourke is already over 1,000 yards passing with a surgical 76% completion percentage, a gaudy 10.8 yards per attempt, 8 TDs, 0 picks. So yeah, the competition's been bad, but ball is ball, and Indiana's been balling out. Justice Ellison and Tyson Lawton lead the rushing attack, but Ellison is the home run hitter of the two. Elijah Green has proven to be a capable third wheel as well. And at wide receiver, it's been those 4 guys who get to play because Indiana's been able to play a lot of guys. Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, Miles Price, and Miles Cross. They've all done great, and the unit will be even better when Donovan McCauley returns from injury.
Mm-hmm.
On D, guys like Aiden Fisher have a lot of tackles, while defensive lineman Mikhail Kamara has 3 sacks and has been a force to be reckoned with. Maryland, in contrast, Maryland QB Billy Edwards has been a pleasant surprise. He's proven a worthy heir to Leah's position. Dude has over 1,150 yards passing, 75% completions, 8.5 yards per attempt, 8 TDs, 2 picks. So I think it's safe to say he exceeded any expectations I had for him in the preseason.
Absolutely.
So good for him.
I mean, it's easy. It's pretty easy when you got Felton and Prather back, to throw to as well. But
I mean, it certainly helps.
Yeah.
Maryland's run the ball okay this year, but struggled against better competition. They couldn't get anything going on the ground against Michigan State, so that's something to watch to see if Indiana can stop the run and make Maryland one-dimensional. Roman Hemby and Nolan Ray are okay, but nothing as special at RB. But Ty Felton, man. Ty Felton at receiver. You said it.
Mm-hmm.
He is special. He's got over 600 yards already, 14.7 yards per catch, 5 TDs. Been unstoppable. I'm excited to see if Indiana can do anything to slow him down in this game. Caden Prather's also been very good, and Dylan Wade at tight end is a weapon as well. So this looks to me, John, like an old-fashioned shootout.
Yep.
I expect big plays, long TDs, lots of points, so many points. This might be the highest scoring Big Ten game of the year so far.
Yeah.
Both these offenses can put up numbers, and I don't necessarily trust either of these defenses to assert their will on Saturday at all.
No, I don't. No.
Like, I don't trust them. I think this is going to be fun. I think it's going to be back and forth, wildly entertaining game, lots of points, several turnovers as well. I'm predicting lots of turnovers in this one. I just think it's going to be, that kind of shootout. So how do you see this one coming together?
Yeah, I agree, man. I think it's going to be fireworks. I think it's going to be exciting. But at the end of the day, man, it really is. It's going to come down to these defenses and who can actually stop the other person. And I'm seeing right now, I mean, if it hadn't have been for the fact that Maryland in the second half struggled against Villanova, I would give Maryland the very, clear-cut edge on this game. But that makes me nervous. Villanova scored 20 points in the second half. And
to be fair, they could have been looking ahead, thinking
True.
about, that happens when you get up by enough points.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, sure. But there were some really bad plays and just terrible broken coverages and just missed tackles. And it was just like, they were gone. They checked out entirely. But again, that was the trend last week, like we saw with certain teams. So, but to be fair as well, like with Indiana, we haven't seen them face anyone who's very prolific here. So this is going to be the first time Indiana will face a legitimate, really good quarterback and receiving combo, and they're terrifying. Billy Edwards and Felton are on a whole nother level.
They really are.
So that's going to be really interesting to see how Indiana's defense does. But like you said, other than Ruben Hippolyte for Maryland, I haven't seen anyone impress either. And their defensive line, not that great. So
no.
Can someone establish the run? Can anyone establish the run? Because Maryland...
That's the question, right?
Yeah. Yep. Maryland has not proven that they can really do that, and neither is Indiana. They haven't
Nope.
had to. Indiana hasn't had to. They've been able to throw the ball anywhere at will, and for the most part, Maryland as well. So it's going to be interesting. If I
Oh
can see
yeah.
whoever is able to establish a run game, and of course, as always in the Big Ten, be able to push the other person around at the line of scrimmage. I think that's where you're gonna find the clear cut. That'll be the winner of this game, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close, and I think there's going to be a lot of points, like you said. So I'm in agreement with you on there. So what do you got?
I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to come down to who has the ball last. And when the smoke clears, I've got the Indiana Hoosiers 45, the Maryland Terrapins 41.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay, that's really high scoring. Yeah,
I think it's going to be bananas.
Yeah.
I do. I think there's going to be, man. I'm picturing pick sixes and kickoff returns for touchdowns and just like sloppy blown coverages all over the place. Like, I think it's going to be beautiful. I do. I really do.
Well, I have a little slightly less scoring, but I think it's still going to be a lot of fireworks. But I have Indiana 38 to Maryland's 35.
Is the world ready for the 5-0 Hoosiers?
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, bring it on.
I
Bring it on in Bloomington.
I think that the thing with Indiana right now is they're running at such a high level, and their belief in themselves.
Yeah,
that's
confidence.
it. Where Maryland, man, I mean, like I said, like that second half against Villanova, it just all kind of went out the window, and it looked like just really discombobulated, and that's not something I want to see. And Maryland or in Indiana, yes, they haven't really played anybody, but they have not once shown that they're not there to just dominate you, and they do. And so I think they're running with that momentum right now, and I can see Indiana taking this, but I think it's going to be close. But Indiana exudes confidence, and that's where I give them the edge on this right now.
For sure.
Plus, they're at home.
That said, it's totally possible that Ty Felton goes for 200 yards, and that's just way too much for the Hoosiers.
That's very possible.
That's on the board. Like, I'm predicting Indiana wins. I am on record. But like, if they lose, it's going to be because Ty Felton was totally unstoppable.
Yeah. Which is a realistic possibility.
A real possibility.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a possibility that he goes for 150, 200 bills.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have the 3-1 Nebraska Cornhuskers going to West Lafayette. Take on the 1-2 Purdue Boilermakers. This is an 11 a.m. game also on Peacock. So it'll be terrible to watch. I can't wait to try to get through the highlights of that mess after it's on Peacock, which is the worst interface of anything and makes me upset that I have to watch games on it. And I really resent you because NBC, you do a really good job on your games that are on NBC, but why on Peacock is it a total disaster? That's frustrating. Fix that, NBC, if you're listening, if you're out there. If you work for NBC, make it happen. Take one for the team. All right. The line is Nebraska by 10. So things are starting to get ugly in West Lafayette, John. After a season opening dominating win over the Indiana State Sycamores, Purdue has had a bye week and 2 ugly losses. The loss to Notre Dame, which they weren't even competitive. And then worse, they got beat by 3 scores by what is now a group of 5 team in Oregon State. That's rough. Head coach Ryan Walters needs to find some answers, and he needs to find them soon. Purdue ranks just 92nd in scoring offense and 118th in scoring defense. By contrast, Nebraska ranks 60th in scoring offense and 19th in scoring D. So QB Hudson Card is completing 64% of his attempts, which is solid, but for just 6.9 yards per attempt, which is okay, but not very good. 6 TDs, 3 picks, and 5 sacks. So woof. Devin Mockabee at running back has been pretty solid for Purdue, all things considered. They got to keep finding creative ways to get him the ball in space, I think. At receiver, it's been bad, though. Tight end Max Clare is a legit weapon, but nobody else has more than 5 catches on the year. Purdue desperately needs somebody to step up at wide receiver and fill that Deion Burke-shaped hole that's left in this offense. By contrast, it's been a lot easier for Nebraska blue chip Frosh Dylan Raiola, who has completed 72% of his passes, 8.4 yards per attempt, 8 TDs, and 2 picks. So for a Frosh, that's really good, I'd say. Even though he probably cost them the Illinois game, it was he's played pretty well overall. And he's taken 6 sacks, which isn't great, but it's something to watch going forward. Running back Dante Dowdell has been fine as the bell cow back, but not great. And the wide receivers, Isaiah Nair and Jamal Banks, have really stepped up for this offense in recent weeks. So that's been good to see. My question is, can Purdue move the ball in any sort of consistent way? Because when this offense is inefficient, the defense gets left out on the field too long, and that leads to disaster. Purdue needs to get more out of the offense this week if they're going to compete. How do you think this game's going to shape up, John?
Well, my guy Hudson Card has just not been showing up the way I needed him to this year.
No, he hasn't.
I
don't even know if it's his fault, but it's not happening.
Yeah, it's when you only put up 56 yards against Oregon State.
Brutal.
It's pretty brutal. Devin Mockabee ran for 168 yards on 16 carries, 10.5 yard average with a 1 TD. That's solid. That's a pretty darn good game right there.
Nice day at the office for him.
Absolutely, but nobody else can do anything. So,
no.
And you're going to need that against Nebraska's defense. It was. I just, yes, there's still some issues here and there at Nebraska, but they are not nearly as glaring as Purdue.
Yeah.
Purdue is a mess, and I don't see any morale. I don't see any fight coming out of this team. You'd think after a bye week, there would have been something there. I'm not saying they should have won that game, but
they didn't even show up.
No, they've been totally embarrassed, and frankly, even against Oregon State, they didn't score. They had 1 TD in the second quarter, and then they didn't even score their last 14 points until like garbage time towards the end of the game. And so Oregon State ran that game, and they owned them the entire time.
Right.
So this is a Ryan Walters deal, man. And it's not there. I don't know if it's ever going to be there. I don't have a lot of hope. I see Nebraska basically, having control of this game the entire time. I think Nebraska is going to going to want to establish the run, and I think they will. I don't think they're going to throw as much as they may, be able to. They definitely will throw the ball, but I don't think they're going to have to worry about it too much. I think they're going to be able to run. And basically, I can see it be maybe 7-14 at the end of the half, and then in the second half, Nebraska just coming out, just guns a-blazing and taking it out. And for me, I see Nebraska winning this game 28 to Purdue's 6.
Okay.
Or sorry, 7. I already talked 7. About getting a touchdown. Yeah, so sure. 7.
Yeah, I just don't see it for Purdue.
Nope.
I think Nebraska gets ahead early.
Mm-hmm.
I think that puts Purdue in a negative game script. At that point, you're leading to a lot of sacks and pressures for the visiting defense because they know when Purdue is going to be throwing the ball. And I think that's going to lead to some turnovers, cause some chaos, give Nebraska short fields. And I think the Huskers are going to take advantage. So I have the Nebraska Cornhuskers 31, the Purdue Boilermakers 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to guess that some of that 13 comes in garbage time.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's not looking great for the Ryan Walters era for sure. And I think, like I said, ever since they lost their 2 best players, it's true, but like that still doesn't excuse being so uncompetitive.
Mm-hmm.
That's rough.
Yeah. It's going to be a long season.
Yeah. But at least they have basketball season, huh? They made the national title game last year.
Right.
All the good vibes. So Purdue's got basketball. I'll give them that. All right. Next up, we have the 2-1 Wisconsin Badgers going to Los Angeles to take on the 2-1, number 13 ranked USC Trojans. This is a 2:30 p.m. game on CBS. The line is USC by 15.5. This game looked a lot more interesting before Tyler Van Dyke got hurt.
Yeah.
Wisconsin has had 2 weeks to re-engineer the offense around Braden Locke. So how does that look? Do we see a more run-heavy approach? I think that's almost certainly the case. We talked about that in the last episode. You were talking about them needing to go to a run-heavy approach as well. I mean, you were making that point specifically, and you're correct.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many questions about what this Badger offense is going to look like now if they don't have TBD back there slinging it.
Yeah.
Like, do they get Locke involved in the running game to be like a number in the run game so they can open up things for their backs by having their running back? Do they dare do that with their backup quarterback? Or do they try to protect him by just having him hand the ball off? I don't think you can get away with that. I think he's going to have to run the ball a little bit to be not a lot, but I'm thinking 3, 4, 5 times a game. He's got to pull it and run.
Yep.
So that they have to respect that. And that can open up the run, that can open up things a little bit for the backs. Ches Malusi, Cade Yakimelli, Tawi Walker, they got to take the lead in that RB room and put up numbers the way Wisconsin running backs used to if Wisconsin is going to be competitive against this high-powered Trojans offense on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
You need a big day from Will Pauling at wide receiver too, as well. You got to keep finding ways to get him the ball, even though you don't have your QB anymore. Now, I don't know, maybe that's a pop pass. Maybe that's some kind of reverse action. Maybe it's, putting him in bunch set so you can get him off one defender and get him on the defender you want covering him. There's got to be different techniques you pull to try to get him the ball in space. And if you're USC, you were real close on Saturday.
Yep.
You were right there, and you're trying to get the bitter taste of that Michigan loss out of your mouth, and that means coming out clicking on all cylinders on Saturday. So Miller Moss has been awesome this year, completing 65% of his passes for 7.6 yards per attempt, 5 TDs, and a pick. He's been able to keep the offense moving and made key plays when he's had to. USC has got to continue getting production out of Woody Marks in the run game. You can't just throw the ball against Wisconsin every time, or that pass rush will tee off on your QB. You got to establish the run a little bit and keep Wisconsin guessing on defense. Wide receiver Zachariah Branch and Kyron Hudson, along with tight end Lake McCree for USC, should be in attack mode on Saturday. This Wisconsin D has been exposed at times this year.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bevy of talented skill possession players at USC that they have to throw at them. So expect Wisconsin to try to take the deep ball away and force USC to dink and dunk its way up and down the field. And I think if Wisconsin's going to have any chance, they have to take away. They can't be giving up 30, 40, 50, 60-yard passes, bombs downfield. They have to be forcing USC to drive the field and earn it. So how do you see this one going, John?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see a lot of hope for Wisconsin right now. I do think that because I think it's their only card left to play, that they're going to have to turn into that run heavy Wisconsin offense that we grew up seeing.
Yep.
Their best players are all back there now. You got Ches Malusi, you got Yakimelli, and Tyree Walker. Like, I think that it worked. The running game was working. It obviously wasn't enough, in their last game, but you started to see it click. And I think that's just what you build it around. You revert back to what you know and what you do, and what that program has, had as their identity for as long as you and I can possibly remember. And they've got some dudes back there. I think it's going to be more or less a running back by committee. But
it have to if you're going to run it 70% of the time.
Absolutely, but it works. And like I said, they've got talent, so I think they can do that. I think they're going to be able to run on this team, but I don't see it being enough against an offense that is that potent. And USC's defense for a while, did better against Michigan's run game than I was expecting them to. Inevitably, obviously, they were able to grind them down, and they were able to kind of break a few of those runs, and then that was what cost them the game. But I don't think Wisconsin has the defense to withstand that air raid. That attack is it's so good, and I unfortunately just think that Miller Moss is going to be able to pick them apart, and it's going to be a long day, and you're going to see those Wisconsin DBs, get tired, and players like Zachariah Branch are just going to be able to make some really big plays, and I think that's what's going to cost the game. Unfortunately, Wisconsin's defense just doesn't look like the Wisconsin defense of old, the Jim Leonard defenses that you and I got used to seeing as well. It's just not there right now. So I see USC winning this game pretty big. I think Wisconsin scores a couple touchdowns with the run game, and they're able to drive down the field and play some old Big Ten smash mouth football. But USC is not going to be fooled. They're ready for that. They know what they're coming up against, and they're not playing against a defense that was as good as Michigan's. So I think USC wins 35 to Wisconsin's 14.
Yeah, I think this is close for a while. I do. I think Wisconsin comes out with a lot of intensity. I think they probably break off a couple big runs early, and they have USC on their heels a little bit. But I think then D'Anton Lynn adjusts. I think that they start to make it harder on Wisconsin. And I just think Miller Moss is going to do what he wants, man.
Yep.
I think he's got the receivers that he can go to that are really talented. And I'm not, Hunter Wooler's great, but like the rest of the Wisconsin DBs have not been there this year so far.
Yep.
So I've got the USC Trojans 38, the Wisconsin Badgers 17.
Wow. So we're both pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing the game similarly.
Yep.
Yeah. USC wins this one comfortably, and I think this is going to cause a lot of consternation in Madison.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the vibes are not going to be good. All right, next up, we have the 3-0, number 3 Ohio State Buckeyes going to East Lansing to take on the 3-1 Michigan State Spartans. This is a 6 p.m. game on Peacock. Line is Ohio State by 24. Another Peacock game. I can't wait. Great.
I'm sure
awesome.
Buckeye fans are really happy about being on Peacock.
Oh, I'm sure they're jazzed about it. Absolutely. Peacock, man, they got to fix that interface. They just got to do it.
Yeah,
they got to do it because it's really, really bad. And it's impossible to fast forward back and rewind through games because it'll cut to advertisements every time you try to fast forward or rewind.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
You're swimming upstream trying to watch football, and it's just ads in your face. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, sorry. I really hate Peacock, man. I really hate it. I can't stand it. I resent it.
I think the vast majority of people hate it, and which is why I'm like, why haven't you fixed this by now? Like, because it was the same problem.
How have they not
year.
fixed it? It's NBC. NBC knows how to do it. They do it on their normal channel.
Well, and it's a lot. It's all the same issues as last year. Like, it hasn't changed. So, like, why didn't you fix this in the off season? I don't get it. But all right.
Yeah. We're in revolt and Peacock. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, Michigan State has been a feel-good story so far this year with their plucky win over Maryland in one of the first conference games of the season. However, it's feeling a little shakier in East Lansing after the loss to Boston College last week. In that one, Sparty got behind, couldn't commit to running the ball as much as they would have liked to. And Lynch Adams had 61 yards and Childs had 57. That was it for the running game. Nate Carter was totally shut down. So that can't happen if Sparty's going to compete with Ohio State. They have to run the ball effectively and not put so much pressure on their young signal caller. Aiden Child's been up and down, completing just 54% of his passes, 7.7 yards per attempt, 4 TDs, and 7 picks. Aiden Childs has already thrown 7 interceptions. That is brutal when you're trying to win games.
Yeah.
Got to get Lynch Adams and Nate Carter going in the run game. The problem is that Ohio State's 7th in the country in rushing D, giving up just 67 yards per game. And running against this Buckeyes D has not been a recipe for success. But Ohio State is also 5th in passing defense, giving up just 113 yards per game. So there's really nowhere good to attack this Buckeye defense based on what we've seen so far against lesser competition. We'll see what it looks like against a team that actually plays in the same conference as Ohio State. I think guys like safeties Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs are going to be patrolling and shutting down passing lanes against this Sparty offense. I think up front, Tyleek Williams is a game wrecker, and he's going to take over on Saturday and humble the Sparty O-line. Ohio State QB Will Howard's been very good, but against Sparty, I think he's going to be great. He's completing nearly 70% of his passes already for 10.7 yards per attempt, 6 TDs and a pick. But I think he's just scratching the surface of what he can do at Ohio State. And I think this Michigan State game could be his coming out party. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson are monsters at running back. I mean, they can do almost anything, and they're going to play. I'm sure they'll play well against Sparty too. So whether it's preseason All-American Emeka Egbuka at wide receiver, or Frosh Phenom Jeremiah Smith, or stalwart receiver Carnell Tate, the Buckeyes will eviscerate your secondary. These guys all are capable of being the number one receivers, and they can all do damage in any game. I will be excited to see who goes off against Sparty or whether they spread the ball around as they have been doing. I think the Buckeyes come out focused, John. I think they've heard the doubters. Mm-hmm. And I think they come out wanting to send a message. So how do you see this game shaping up?
Yeah, Aiden Childs is incredibly talented. He really is.
Yes.
He's young, and he needs to develop, and he needs to mature and stop with the YOLO shots, because that's what's killing him. When he's on, and it's amazing. But he needs to figure out, his decision making a little bit here.
He's got some high school decision making there that he's making.
I mean, I'm glad you're having fun, buddy. But let's now we're in conference play.
Yeah, now the stakes are a little higher now.
Yeah,
a little higher.
So yeah, I think we're going to see Michigan State put up some points, but I don't think that they're ever going to be threatening. I think Ohio State is going to have this in control. I don't see Michigan State's defense being able to withstand this attack from both the ground and the air. I think that Ohio State is just going to make Michigan State's defense look silly more often than not.
Yeah.
I just don't think they have the horses to keep up right now. Jonathan Smith, great coach. I'm sure Joe Rossi will have his guys in position, but they're just going to be out talented, man. You just don't have the depth of talent to stand up against this Ohio State offense. And the onslaught's going to be too much. So I also see Ohio State basically being able to do what they want at will offensively. And defensively, I could see early in the game, Aiden Childs making some crazy play like we've seen him do, because he's very creative.
I expect him to.
Oh yeah, he's very elusive. He's and sometimes those YOLO shots, man, they pay off. And so I could see one or two of those getting through, and him looking amazing. And maybe making it look like it's going to be competitive early in the game, but before Ohio State, adjusts and shuts them down entirely. So I see this game as a runaway victory, a statement win. Maybe not as high scoring as what Ohio State could do, because I think they call off the dogs, because they're not going to, their defense is going to be able to take care of business and shut down Aiden Childs, I think, in the second half.
Right.
But I see Ohio State winning this game 31 to Michigan State's 10.
I think the Buckeyes are on a mission. I think that they want to send the message that they aren't just a national title contender, that they are the national title contender. They aren't just a contender for the Big Ten title. They are the team to beat in the Big Ten. I think they're going to come out in a big night game, pumped up, focused. I think Chip Kelly is going to have it all schemed up. And I think the dam's going to break, man. I think it's going to break. I think it's going to break in a big way in East Lansing. I think by halftime, the crowd's going to be gone. And at the end of this game, we're going to have the number 3 Ohio State Buckeyes 52, the Michigan State Spartans 13. I think the Buckeyes are due.
Yeah.
I think they're due to just have that game where you're like, oh my God, they're unstoppable. What are you going to do about this team? I think they're due for that moment as a national title contender. And I think Michigan State is a perfect example, a perfect opportunity for the Buckeyes to come out and just get silly with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Ryan Day is going to call off the Dogs anytime soon. I think it's going to be deep into the game before he bothers clearing his bench.
All right. I could absolutely see that. Yep.
All right. Next up, we have the Big Ten Saturday night showcase game. Number 19, 4-0, Illinois Illini going to Happy Valley to visit the number 9, 3-0, Penn State Nittany Lions. 6:30 p.m. game on NBC. Big Ten Saturday night. And the line is Penn State by 19.
Now, this is a whiteout, right?
No, unofficial whiteout.
Okay.
They're doing, I think their whiteout is for Washington or something. It's it's weird this year. So this is an unofficial, like the crowd is like, let's do a whiteout, but it's not officially a whiteout.
Okay. All right.
So I think you'll see people in the crowd wearing blue. I think you will.
Okay.
But a lot of people will be wearing, I think most of the people will be wearing white.
Gotcha.
It's been a dream season for Illinois so far, John.
Yeah.
They survived against Kansas and Nebraska, and in both games needed and got late game heroics to win. Can their winning streak continue in Happy Valley? Or is it going to be Penn State who gets back on track after a 56-0 shutout victory over Kent State last week? In which, after they played that weirdly close game against Bowling Green the week before. So which Penn State shows up? Is it the team that dominates the competition or the one that plays down to it? That could decide whether or not this is a close game or not. Penn State currently ranks 17th in scoring offense to Illinois, who's 51st. You know Bielema wants to run the ball. You know he wants to drain the clock. You know he wants to shorten that game. And he wants to limit how many possessions this high-powered Nittany Lions offense gets. Can he do it? Penn State is currently 17th in rushing D, as Tom Allen's unit is giving up just 85 yards per game, which is fantastic. But again, Penn State has not played the strongest competition so far. So we'll be finding out a lot about both of these teams in this game. Illinois wants to get to its 3-headed monster at running back going, especially lead back Caden Fagan. It's important to block well for him and get him running downhill because he doesn't have a lot of wiggle. And he's not going to make you miss a bunch. He's a big, fast power back who will break tackles and outrun you in the open field. But he's not a technician making every defender miss out there, you know? I think the key to this game is is Illinois' wide receivers, Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin. Penn State will try to take away the run and limit big plays. This will leave plenty of room for Illinois' receivers to try to make hay underneath. Can they beat man coverage consistently and find the holes in the zones consistently and then make the plays when the ball comes their way? That could decide whether the Illini have a chance in this game or not. Luke Altmaier's playing great for Illinois, completing 71% of his passes for 8.2 yards per attempt, 10 TDs and 0 picks. That's really good. But Drew Aller is also completing 71% of his passes for 8 TDs and a pick. So he's really good, and he's got an insane 12.6 yards per attempt, which is bananas. So that's an explosive passing offense. John, what are you thinking about this game?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun one. You're going to see two different styles going at it. I think offensively, Penn State is going to definitely now that they have some big playability, they're going to want to stretch the field. They are definitely going to want to throw the ball more than what they're used to, but they also have a pretty potent running attack as well. So,
yep.
Illinois, they've been throwing the ball pretty well, but it's not. You're not seeing any, explosive plays, not down the field, not very many. Pat Bryant is amazing, but not seeing a ton of stuff. When it comes to the deep ball, just consistent stuff moving down the field, which is great, which obviously has won them games. The running game, it had looked a little bit better last week, but still took a while to get going. And unfortunately for them, I think this Penn State defense is better. Now, Nebraska's defense is good, but Penn State is elite, in my opinion. So you're now going up even another level here. And that running game is probably going to suffer because of that. It's going to be so hard to defend against Abdul Carter, and I'm not sure if you can.
He's really good.
He's amazing.
It's really good.
I don't see Illinois' offensive line or Luke Altmaier being able to get away from him. I don't see the running backs being able to escape him, amongst other players on the defensive side of the ball for Penn State. So it's just unfortunate, and plus you're playing in Happy Valley. I mean, Beaver Stadium is really tough to play at, especially at night. Even if it's not a whiteout, it's really hard. Both you and I have been to night games at.
I've been to the whiteout, man. It's the most intimidating college football atmosphere I've ever been in, period.
Same.
I've been to the game. I've been to the game. I've been to the shoe and seen Michigan and Ohio State in the game. I've seen big games in different stadiums. Nothing prepares you. That place shakes, man.
Yeah.
It shakes and you can't hear anything.
No.
It's a special atmosphere for sure. The stadium is kind of run down and a piece of trash in a lot of ways, but the atmosphere that those fans bring is, and they're fixing the stadium now, I know, but they need to fix the stadium because the stadium amenities are terrible.
Yeah.
So they really need to fix that up, and I'm glad they are. But yeah, Penn State brings it, man. It's a different kind of atmosphere. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so I'm definitely. I was at the Auburn Penn State whiteout a few years back, and that man, it's same thing. Like you were there, and you can't hear yourself think half the time. So, not saying that's happening. It's not a whiteout, but it's still going to be pretty riled up. It's a night game, and Penn State fans show up. So I do see Illinois maybe putting up a fight in the first half and it being a little close. But again, this is going to be a game where I think that Penn State just has more talent and across the board. Maybe they're not Ohio State, but they definitely are up there. And I think they're just going to be able to run the ball and throw the ball at will in the second half. And their defense, I don't think, is going to let them establish the run at all. I think the run will be stopped pretty early in the game, and Altmaier will be able to maybe get some passes down the field here and there and score some points. But I think Penn State's just going to suffocate them and come out with a pretty clear-cut win.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. What do you have for a score, though?
I have Penn State 35 to Illinois 13.
Interesting. I have the Penn State Nittany Lions 31, the Illinois Illini 16.
Okay. So we're seeing a very similar game again.
Yeah, I think it's close. I do think Bielema's got some tricks up his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if Bielema pulls a trick play sometime in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like a fake punt or like a double reverse pass or something that he scores on, right? Like I could see that happening. I think they're gonna throw the kitchen sink at him, but ultimately, man, this Tom Allen defense I think is gonna really show up.
Oh yeah,
I think that's gonna be a big talking point coming out of this game is the way the Tom Allen defense shuts down Illinois in the second half of this game. That's what I think is gonna happen.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we made it to the last game of the night. And this is truly Big Ten After Dark, John.
Yes,
We've got the number 8, 3-0 Oregon Ducks visiting the 1-2 UCLA Bruins. This is a 10 p.m. game on Fox. That's 8 o'clock local on the West Coast, but 10 p.m. Central kick. So that's wild. And the line is Oregon by 25.5. So, go ahead.
No, you go right ahead. What do you got?
UCLA's had a rough year so far.
Yep.
They won a low-scoring nail-biter against Hawaii. Then they got crushed by Indiana before playing a solid first half against LSU, only to get crushed in the second half. That first half of the LSU game is the best they played all year. And if they can recreate that half of football and keep it up for 60 minutes, they will have a chance to win some Big Ten games. I'm not saying they'll win any necessarily, but if they do that, they will give themselves a chance in some of their remaining games. Ethan Garbers has completed for UCLA, has completed just 57% of his passes for 7.1 yards per attempt, 3 TDs, 4 picks, and he's been sacked 8 times. Woof. It's been a rough year for Garbers so far. He's had his moments, but just not nearly consistent enough. And the running game has been non-existent. 2.6 yards per rush for TJ Harden. So it's been really, really bad as UCLA cannot open holes and their backs are not getting a lot of help up front. They need Rico Flores or somebody to step up with wide receiver and get open more consistently. They need to find a way to get the ball to tight end Moliki Mataveo more, and also keep throwing it to running back TJ Harden, as that has been successful. UCLA also just needs to play a lot better on defense. I mean, they've gotten shelled a lot. And then Oregon, you've got, who underachieved the first 2 weeks against the 2 Idaho teams and had people like us wondering if they were a total bust. However, they blew out Oregon State in convincing fashion, so we are back to giving them the benefit of the doubt again. Will be fascinating to see how they play in this game and whether they earn that trust back. So do they come out flat and uninspired like they did against Idaho and against Boise State? Or will they play all out like they did against their hated rivals? That's going to determine how this game goes. Because UCLA, flat out, does not have the horses to compete with Oregon. Full stop. So if this is a close game at all, it means that UCLA played well and Oregon played down to its competition. QB Dylan Gabriel has been sublime for Oregon, completing an insane 84% of his passes, John, for 9.7 yards per attempt, 6 TDs, no picks. He has taken 7 sacks, which is the only bad news. Otherwise, he's putting up straight video game numbers on a weekly basis. So that's impressive stuff. Running back Jordan James has been solid as a bell cow running back, running for nearly 300 yards and 6.4 yards per rush. That's good stuff, especially behind what has been an underachieving offensive line so far this year. For a while, Oregon was playing a walk-on at center, which was not working very well. However, since they replaced him and they're playing a lot better up front. Tez Johnson is a bona fide star at wide receiver, while tight end Terrence Ferguson, wide receivers Holden and Stewart are all guys you need to keep track of if you're the UCLA D. And then, I think it's going to be a good game for Jordan Birch, Derek Harmon, and the rest of that D line to do work. So what do you think about this one, John?
I feel really bad for UCLA in this game. Oregon's had 2 weeks to prepare for this.
Yeah. Yikes.
And yes, UCLA had one good half, and where it looked like it was able to do something against LSU, but LSU had an absolutely atrocious defense.
Yes, that's true.
So that's, that's where you were able to see Ethan Garbers, make some stuff happen. But UCLA's running game was still non-existent. Their top running back had 22 yards. So it's not looking good. I think this is going to be another team, just like Ohio State, that's going to want to have a statement win where they are going to absolutely want to destroy and annihilate and, make no question about how good they are. And I think that's going to be this game. I think Oregon just has so much talent and so much speed that they're just going to be able to run freaking circles around UCLA and make them look silly. And it's again, this is just another team. I think UCLA, yes, they're able to throw something together. I don't think they're totally devoid of talent on the offensive side of the ball. They're just not ready yet to compete at this level. So I think this is going to be a tough game. I don't really see UCLA getting anything going at all. So I've got Oregon winning 52 to UCLA's 6.
Oh, wow. I thought I was going to have the more lopsided score. but you got me. I mean, I'm with you. One decent half against LSU does not prove to me that UCLA is capable or ready of putting together a whole game.
Mhm.
I want to see them do it before I predict them to do it. So, yeah, I think this goes pear-shaped early and it's a blowout by half.
Yeah.
Oregon's playing better. I think they're coming out with something to prove against the overmatched, rebuilding Bruins. So I've got the Oregon Ducks 45, the UCLA Bruins 17. But I think they call off the Dogs and get, you know what I mean? Like, I think in the fourth quarter, we're talking about backups the whole time.
Okay.
So I think UCLA probably scores late, when their starters are still in, the Oregon backups are in kind of thing. So
Sure.
I think UCLA maybe manages one score before the game, when the game is still in doubt.
All right. We'll see.
All right.
Well, that's it.
We did it. We previewed all the games. I'm excited for a big week 5.
Yeah, it's going to be great. There's some good ones here, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. So, and it is really nice having that Friday night game where you just have one game to focus on, and I'm not changing channels through a bunch of different things or having 3 screens or whatever. Like, you just get to really focus on this one game. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be fun. And again, we're just excited to have football, even if and if your team isn't doing
Conference
well,
play.
Like you said, there's still 8 games left. Who knows? It's college football. Things happen all the time. So
anything could happen, and your team could suddenly start playing better. That's certainly what we're hoping for.
We are hoping.
So if you're hoping for that, so are we. And things can change. It's college football. These are 18 to 24 or 5-year-old men. Things can change a lot from week to week.
For sure.
So hope is not yet lost.
Yeah. Well, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26, and you can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can also email us, We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com.
All right. Thanks for listening. Please go like the video, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or whatever platform you are finding us on, but also go to YouTube and subscribe. That helps us a ton.
Please.
And we will see you for the review episode on Monday. Super pumped to watch football this weekend. All right. Hope everyone has a good one.